So flick back over to my array program, enter the student names and their marks. I've still just ignored the student names at the minute. So the program then displays a summary of the marks, including the average, minimum, and maximum marks. So let's talk about display. How can I display this array? Well, if I use the same loop again in there, because it's going to loop 5 times in total, I have a list box called lstdisplay.items.add, and in there I can put in there student, so let's have a look at that line. In my list box, add an item, it'll say student 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I might need +1 there, because it'll say student 1 now, student 2, student 3, student 4, student 5. And then I'm going to add on to that a colon with a space around it, and then the actual data out of the array at the position of I. So let's just give it a quick run and see if it actually does that. Student marks, so the first student was 21, 18, 34, 44, 32. Okay, oh, slip of the keyboard there. But as you can see, it outputs one by one all of the student marks into the list box. Okay, so that works fine. But what if, as the question says, how can I work out the average, the minimum, and the maximum marks? Well, the average is add all the numbers up as you go along and divide them by how many you've got. Well, I know I've got 5 because the question asks for 5 students. All I really need to do is add in there, keep adding a total together. So if I say dim total as integer, because I'm dealing with whole numbers, that will be the data type. And down here, I can just say total equals total plus my array at the position of I. Now I need total again because I need to keep the current running total and then add on top of that. So every time I add something into my array, add it on top of the total there. So after this, all I'll do is I'll just say lst.display.items.add, and now I'll just say average And to work out the average, I could either use a variable if I wanted to. So if I just said dim average as double, or you could use single in Visual Basic. And these are just floating point numbers. I could even use decimal, I suppose. And in there, total divided by 5. Okay. Then all I need to do is say and average. And that's it. So let's just see if that works. Always test your code as you're going along in incremental steps. Run 21, 18, 34, 44, and 32. Okay, average 29.8. That looks right to me. So that means our average is done. What about the minimum and maximum values then? How do we get the minimum values and the maximum values? So first thing I need is some variables. Dim min as integer and dim max as integer. So every time we add a number in, all we need to do is use a selection statement, which is an if, to say if the thing you've entered, so if my array at the position of I, so the thing I've just entered, if that's bigger than the maximum value, then the maximum value is now whatever was in the array that I compared originally. And there we are. So that's the maximum value. Now think about it. When you first enter a number, 21, these values are 0 by default. So it'll say if the first thing I enter, which is 21, is greater than 0. 21 is bigger than 0, so this will be right. 21 will go inside maximum, and that'll be maximum. 18 will come along. It's not going to pass that condition. 34 will then be maximum. 44 then will be maximum, and then 32 will then be maximum. Okay, so let's just prove that actually does work. Another list box add, and I'll go max value, and max goes in there. Run this again. (21), 18, 34, 44, and 32. Okay, so our maximum value is 44, so that checks out and that works okay. And so basically all I need to do really is just do it again on the minimum value. But this time it'll be, is the thing I've just entered less than the minimum? Okay, store it in the right variables. Put out the output. There you go, output's there. And let's see if this does work then. Run, first one, 21. So looking at the numbers, 18 should be the minimum value according to the numbers I'm entering. It's 0. That's interesting. Now the reason why is because the minimum's default value is 0. Okay, and you can't get any less than 0, or all of those numbers are not smaller than 0. So one simple little cheat around this is to just put in a really large number, set the really large number so that this will definitely trigger on the first number, because 21 is definitely less than 9,999. So I wonder if that little cheat actually just fixes that then. So we'll try again. And we've got 21, 18, 34, 44, and 32. There you go. Perfect. So that all works. And that's really all we need to do for this algorithm here. So quick recap then. We've set our array of size 5 in total, but we use 4 because we start at 0. Total integer, minimum integer, but it gets set to a high value, and then maximum defaults to 0. We then populate our array, so looping using a for loop, which is a static set loop. I equals 0, so our local variable starts at 0 and it loops all the way up to 4. We populate the array with this line. We then add up the total. We then check if the thing we've added is bigger than the maximum value and vice versa, less than the minimum value. Once we've populated those, we then output the entire array to a list box. That's that code there. And then at the bottom, we work out the average, display the maximum, and display the minimum. And there's a quick little introduction to arrays. Following on from this, we'll probably look at multi-dimensional arrays and see what difference that makes. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you again soon.